Okay, we're going to complete the review for your test tomorrow. Write the system of inequalities that represents the following graph. We have two separate inequalities that we're going to have to write the equation for. You can write either one first. I'm going to start with the dotted line. So looking at the dotted line, it is shaded below, so we know that it's less than. And when it's dotted, we don't put the line underneath because the points are not included or not equal to. Then we need to find the slope. So I'm going to locate 2 points. Here's a point, here's a point, and I'm going to find the rise over the run, which is how I get from one point to the next point. I'm going down 2, and I'm going over 1, 2, 3. That is my slope. So negative 2/3. Your slope goes next to your x. And then I need my y-intercept. So where does it cross the y-axis? Which is right here at 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's one equation. Then I'm going to do the solid line. So again, looking at it, here's the solid line. I'm shading below that line, so it's less than. Now it is a solid line, so I'm going to put the line underneath it because we would include any points that fall on that line in the solution set. Then I need to find the slope. Okay, I'm a little confused with all this up here, so I'm just going to come down here and find 2 points. Here's a point. Here's a point. You could pick any 2 points on the line that you want to. So to get from one point to the other point, I'm looking for my rise over my run. I'm going to rise down 3, so it's going to be a negative 3, and I'm going over 1. Negative 3 divided by 1 is just negative 3. So my slope is negative 3, so that goes next to your x. The y-intercept is still at 4, so plus 4. These are the systems of inequalities that is graphed. On your test, you need to make sure that you do this before you even look at your answer choices, because you can get partial credit just for showing us these steps. Or if you justify shaded below, dotted line, show us the slope, show us the y-intercept. You can get points for all those different pieces of it. On number 2, you first have to solve for y. So I'm going to take this top equation, x minus 3y less than or equal to 18. So I'm going to isolate the y variable, move to the other side, so I subtract the x, subtract the x. You write them side by side. So this gives us negative 3y less than or equal to, and you could write this in either order, 18 minus x or negative x and a positive 18. Either way is fine. And then the final step is to divide. I'm dividing by a negative 3. Okay guys, this is an inequality. What do we have to remember about inequalities? When you divide by a negative, you have to flip the symbol. So when I simplify this, we get y. Now instead of less than or equal to, it's going to become greater than or equal to. Okay, there's an imaginary 1 in front of this x. So negative divided by a negative is a positive, and I'm going to leave it 1/3 x. 18 divided by a negative 3 is a negative 6, so minus 6. So here's one equation. And I need to come over here and find my other equation. So we have x plus 2y less than or equal to negative 2. So we're going to isolate other side, side by side. So this gives us 2y less than or equal to. Again, you can write it in either order. I'm just going to keep it in this form since the other one, I put the x first. And then the final step is to divide everything by 2. Do I need to flip my inequality symbol this time? No, I don't. I don't need to because I didn't divide by a negative number. So we get that y is less than or equal to negative 2 divided by 2 is a negative 1. And then there's an imaginary 1 in front of this. So it's a negative 1/2 x. Okay, so those are my two equations. So now I'm going to graph them. To graph them, I like to use colored pencils or a colored pen of some sort, since I'm going to have to shade. Alright, here's my pencils. I'm going to do this one in blue. Okay, so I'm going to start at negative 6, and I'm going to go up 1 over 3. Up 1 over 3. Guys, on your test, more than half of it is from showing work or showing your process. You have to do the graphs on your test. Okay, so we've done it. This has a line underneath, so I need to connect it. It's a solid line. And it's greater than. So when it's greater than, I'm going to shade above. Okay. Now I'm going to pull out my green. So we're going to do Michigan against Baylor. So Ms. Kennison will appreciate that. Okay. For this one, my y-intercept is negative 1. And to graph it, since it's a negative 1/2, I'm going to go down 1 and right 2. Down 1, right 2. If you had gone down and left, that would still make it positive. So make sure that you're still going right, even when it's negative. Down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2. Okay, another important thing to remember is to plot each point on the line. Since we're about to have to look for solutions, we're going to want exact values to be able to compare. Okay, this equation also has the line underneath, so I'm going to draw my line. And it's less than, so I'm shading below this time. So my solution set is anywhere over here where it's double shaded. So I'm going to look at these points and see if these are in that double shaded area. So 0, 0. That is not in the double shaded area. Negative 8, 0. That is in that double shaded area. 6, negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is not. 0, negative 8. That is not. Okay, watch these 2 points. Make sure that you're looking at the x value, then the y value, because one of these is and one of these isn't. I don't want you to misgraph that and get the question wrong on your test. Okay, then we have 0, negative 3. That is a solution. Negative 6, negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is in the double shaded area. 1, negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That is in the double shaded area. And negative 3, 1, 2, 3, positive 2. That is not a solution. It's only in the blue area. Now, I have an extension question for you. What if one of those dots had fallen on the line? Would it still be part of the solution set? It would be, because these are solid lines. So if it's on a solid line, it is included as a solution. All right, so let's move on to number 3. These are already solved for y, so all we have to do is graph it. So again, I'm going to use my fancy colored pencils. If you want to use these on your test tomorrow, just ask your teacher and she'll be more than happy to get them for you. Okay, so we're starting with this first one. My y-intercept is 4, so I'm going to put a dot at 4. And my slope is negative 3 over 2. So I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, over 2. Down 3, over 2. Down 3, over 2. You could also go up 3, left 2. Okay, this is a dotted line, so I'm not going to connect it. I like to see it just a little bit clearer, so I am going to do like little dashes through it. Do you have to do that? No, but I'm a perfectionist. So there's my line, and it's less than, so I'm going to shade below it. Okay, do my second equation. This time I start at a negative 8, and I'm moving the same slope. We go down 3 and right 2, that goes off the graph. So I'm going to go up 3 and left 2. Now, how did I know before I even started plotting these that they were parallel? It's because they have the same slope. So these two lines are parallel. Again, it's a dotted line. I'm going to do my little dashes. And this time it's greater than, so I'm going to shade above. So this whole area in between is your solution set, because it's covered by both of those inequalities. So it's not going to have no solution, because obviously there's a part where they overlap. It has infinitely many solutions. So let's look at the next one. Okay. I'm starting at negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my slope is 2. So that means I'm going to go up 2 over 1. Notice still how I'm plotting each point. It's a dotted line. And it's less than, so I'm going to shade below. Okay. This one I started at positive 1, up 2 over 1. Again, these two lines are parallel. So when we're talking just about systems of equations and they're parallel, it's always no solution, right? But because these are inequalities and we have to choose a direction to shade, sometimes there will be solutions, as we saw in that first example. But for this one, for there to be no solutions, this line cannot overlap this line. Thankfully, this says greater than, which means I would need to shade up. These two colors are never overlapping, so there is no solution. So looking back up here, to have no solution, it means you shade away from the other line. To have infinitely many solutions, we shaded towards the other line. So on your test, make sure you consider those two things. All right, so find the solutions of the following system using tables. Okay, these types of questions are on the very last page of your test, and honestly, my personal suggestion is start on the last page. Do you have to? No. But for me, I would rather you go ahead and get these easy questions over with, so that way you've already earned points for each of those. And then you can spend more time on the ones that require you to graph or solve for y. So here, all we're looking for is where y1 equals y2. So right here, we'll see that y1 is the same as y2. Now, a solution is a point, so you have to have an x value and a y value. Now I'm looking at this table. No, 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 no. None of them are equal. Now, if this was on my calculator, I would keep looking, because just because I don't see it on my screen doesn't mean it doesn't have a solution. Maybe it's higher or lower. But looking at these, how is this changing each time? Plus 1. How are these changing each time? Plus 1. If they're having the same slope, that means the two lines are parallel. So there is no solution. Here, you look for the point that's in common on the tables. -2, 4. Nope, that's not over here. 0, -6. Nope, that's not over here. 3, -12. Ding, 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 we have a winner. So the solution is 3, -12. Five, graph the following systems of equations and find the solution. So you have to solve for y to be able to find the solution. So we're going to isolate other side, side by side. So we have a -2y equals a -8 minus 4x. And then the final step is to divide. So we're going to divide each part by -2. So y equals -8 divided by -2 is a +4. -4 divided by -2 is a +2x. So here's one equation. Now, this is another equation. Guys, this is point-slope form. So you could technically graph it without solving for y. We have a point, which would be 8, 5, and we have a slope, -1/2. I know a lot of you probably don't remember that, so let's just go back and solve for y. So we're going to distribute that -1/2. So y minus 5 equals -1/2x. A negative times a negative is a +4. You have to hip hop and then move across. So how do I move over a -5? You're going to add 5 to both sides. Now, why didn't I add my 5 to this 1/2x? They're not like terms. This has an x, this doesn't. You can't add things to it. So those cancel out. So y equals -1/2x plus 9. Now that we have them in slope-intercept form, you could do it on your calculator, but this has a graph, so on your test, you have to graph. So let's start with this one. I start at +4, and the slope is 2, so I'm going to go up 2 over 1. I could also go down 2 and left 1. Okay, this line I start at +9, and I'm going down 1 over 2. Well, that was easy. It was the first point that I drew. So the point of intersection is right here at 2, 8. Remember, it has to be a point, x and a y. Estimate the solution to the following system of equations. A solution is the point of intersection. So right here. All we're doing is estimating, so we're going to pick a decimal. We don't know the exact answer. I'm going to say it's a little bit before 5, a little bit before 6, so maybe 5.5. And then we're going up 1.5. Is that the exact answer and you had to get those numbers? No, it's called an estimation. 7. Which of the following describes all of the solutions to the inequality 6x plus 3y greater than or equal to 18 when y equals negative 6? Okay, normally you see this and you want to solve for y. But they gave us a specific piece of information. Y equals negative 6. So instead of solving for y, plug this in for y. So 6x plus 3. Instead of y, we have negative 6 greater than or equal to 18. I just rewrote it, but anywhere there was a y, I put negative 6. Now, when we simplify, we get 6x. This equals negative 18 greater than or equal to 18. Get rid of a minus 18 by adding 18. So 6x greater than or equal to 36. And the final step is to divide by 6. So x is greater than or equal to 6. And that is your solution. Over here, how many cases of chocolate bars will this company need to sell in order for cost and revenue to be equal? Okay, well, both of those equations are in y equals, so let's plug it in a calculator. I go to my y equals screen, and I have 30,000 plus 5x, and I have 10x. Yay. Now these are the numbers that I'm considering, and it's asking me how many cases of chocolate. So it's talking about the x values. So these are my possible x values. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to have to scroll all the way down to 3,500. If you click second window, you can go to whatever number you want to go to. 3,500. And let's go back to our table. At 3,500 cases, those are not the same amount. So let's go back, second window, and now let's try 6,000. 6,000. So second graph. Hey, at 6,000 cases, they both generate $60,000. Y1 and Y2 are the same, so this is the solution. Now, you may have picked the 60,000 instead of 6,000 because you see 60,000 right here. So it's important to match up your variables. Cases, cases. We're talking about the x value. Now, maybe you're at home and you don't have a calculator and you're like, thanks, Miss Igden, how am I supposed to solve this problem? Okay? Well, let's just guesstimate and extend these lines on. Don't judge me. Okay, so it's about right there. Yes, that's not completely straight, but it's close enough. If I was to continue this line on, okay, this would be 3.5, this would be 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, and notice these are in thousands. So this point of intersection is almost to 6. So 6,000. I didn't even type it in my calculator and I was able to get an answer. So if you can guesstimate, go ahead and try it and then check it with your calculator. So here, Alex is going ice skating for his birthday party. He's trying to decide which place will be the better deal. At Skaters, it costs $5 to rent each pair of skates and $10 to skate. Anytime you see each or per or for every, that tells you the number needs to be next to a variable. So here we're going to have 5x for 5 each. This is your slope. Slope is the same thing as delta y over delta x, right? So this means it's the y variable for each x variable. It's always going to go in that order. Y for each x. Y per x. Y for every x. And so on and so forth. So we have one equation right here. That's y equals 5x. And then plus this $10 to skate. That's a one-time fee. It doesn't say anything about paying $10 for every person or $10 for each anything. Okay? So we have 10 as a one-time fee. At Skaterade, it's $8 to rent each pair of skates. So again, it's y per x. And this number with that each tells us it's 8x. So our second equation is y equals 8x. And we have this $7 one-time fee. It doesn't ask us for a solution. It says define your variables and set up the system. Here's the system. And we defined our variables up here. So let's just write it out to make it pretty. So the x variable represents the number of pairs of skates. The y variable is the money or the cost. And you're done. With 10, solve the inequalities for slope-intercept form. Now, on your formula charts, if you don't remember what this means, it's y equals mx plus b. So you're trying to get y by itself. So I'm going to isolate other side, side by side. So we have negative 4y less than 24 minus 8x. And the final step is to divide. I'm dividing by a negative 4. Whee-oo! I'm dividing by a negative, and it's an inequality. What do I have to do? Instead of less than, it's greater than. 24 divided by a negative 4 is a negative 6. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 is a positive 2x. Now, this has y equals mx plus b, so the x comes first. So technically you could write it, y is greater than 2x minus 6. These equations are the same thing. Now, bonus question, which way would I shade if I was to graph it? Above. Would it be a solid or a dotted line? Dotted. So let's look at b. We have to distribute because there's parentheses. So we get y plus 9 greater than or equal to 4x minus 4 times a negative 2 is 8. So we hip-hopped, and now we have to move across. How do I get rid of a plus 9? I subtract 9. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. But I'm not going to do it to the x, only to the 8. Those cancel out, so y is greater than or equal to 4x minus 17. And that is in y equals mx plus b. Danny's taking his girlfriend Sandy to the drive-in movie theater. At the drive-in, popcorn costs $3.50 each, and sodas cost $1.50 each. Okay, whoa. We just had 2 eaches. That sounds funny, 2 eaches. Those things are both going to be next to variables. You can label your variables whatever you want to label them. You want to label them P's and S's? So $3.50 P for popcorn, $1.50 S for soda, and then Danny has $30 to spend on snacks. If you have $30 to spend, can you spend more than that? No. Can you spend less than that? Yes. Can you spend exactly that amount? Yes. So that means it's less than or equal to. Now, maybe you could verbalize less than or equal to, but you can't write the sign. Remember, less than or equal to, make an L with your fingers, and that's what sign it is. So if I was to write my equation, we have the 350p plus the 150s, and it has to be less than or equal to that $30. All we have to do is set the problem up. So we're done. Last question. Which inequality can be represented by the graph at the right? Ignore your answer choices. Write what you know. This is a solid line shaded above. Because it's shaded above, it's greater than solid line, so it's equal to. And I need to find the slope. Here's 1 point, here's a point, here's a point. This is a negative slope, negative x. This y-intercept, it's at 2. They're using a b right now, so we could say plus b. Now, let's compare that to our answer choices. Guys, if you just give me this part and it's correct, you've already got 2 points out of your 4. Matching it up to these would be a silly mistake if you got it wrong. You've got this, it's correct, let's just match it. Okay, well that's not solved for y, so that's kind of confusing. What about b? Greater than or equal to negative x minus b. It's got a minus b, it's not b. Okay, that's not solved for y. This one, y is less than or equal to. No sir, we have greater than or equal to. So we have to go back, we're going to have to solve for y. So isolate, other side, side by side, and there's nothing to divide by. Okay, you could write them b minus x, or it's a negative x and a positive b. Do these two equations match? Yes, the answer is A. Okay, make sure you complete this review, which obviously you have if we did it together, hopefully, and bring it with you tomorrow. If you have any questions, let us know.